Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host, like a human advent calendar, spends every day of the month of December giving the world a different treat each day. Today, it's lending his dulcet tones to this very podcast. He's your friend of mine, Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm very good, Rich. That was very sweet of you. Thank you. What a lovely, wholesome, festive way to kick off the first Different Gravy of December.
'Tis the season to be nice to your fellow man.
Mm-hmm. 'Tis the season to write off 2020.
Oh, here, fingers crossed. I do like the idea that you can be, an absolute howling, awful person for 11 months of the year. But as long as you turn it around a bit in December, you're all right. You're fine.
As long as you say on your deathbed, oh yeah, big fan of God. Love him. Surely I'll get into heaven now.
They updated that in the 90s so that you could say psych, like your whole life was kind of a joke, or not. So as long as we shortened it down quite a lot, it's quite good. Even people that are quite sort of, breathy and struggling towards the end can get out a not or a psych. So it was a good update. What a strange place to go right at the start. But there is that, there's that blue dark side to Christmas, and I actually like my song preference, my Christmas song preference. I do like a kind of a blue Christmas. That sort of mood is something that strikes a chord with me. There we go.
Oh, jeez. Let's just get into it.
Let's just get ourselves right. Let's move along.
Breaking hoo-hoos.
I'm just going to go straight into it, Lou. We're going to dive in. We're going to dive in with the kind of gusto of an 18-year-old playing for his hometown club. And we're going to send this podcast off with a lovely, lovely red card. It's we took on Reading. We welcomed Lucas João back, Different Gravy's Player of the Year, returned to Hillsborough. And they're a team generally going well. I mean, they had a weird blip, Reading, but they've recovered from that. So it's another in a succession of playing some of the very top teams in the table. I've written down in my notes the now standard home starting lineup, which I think it just means to me that we play 4 at the back and Van Aken plays left back. That seems to be the main thing with the standard home formation. I don't know. I mean, we don't tend to go through these sort of minute by minute, but this was sort of looking like a fairly good counter-attacking performance that we've become familiar with under Carlos, under Gary Monk, and now under Big Tone, the new man at the helm. And 12 minutes in, we went a goal up with a lovely breakaway.
That was such a phenomenal goal. I mean, there's a lot to look back on, a lot to think and feel very bitterly about. But let's have a bit of goodwill to all men. The goodwill will go to Kadeem Harris, it will go to Adam Reach, and it'll go to Callum Patterson.
There was also I noticed on like the third or fourth watch, a crunching Luongo tackle gets the ball to Harris as well. So. It's kind of a tour de force.
Oh, there we go. Thank you for bringing Massimo Luongo into the frame as well. Thank you, Action Mass. What 4 wise men they were. The first, but what a great ball that was from Kadeem Harris out to Reach.
Lovely.
And Adam Reach just again proving, I think you said best crosser at the club by just putting in an absolute peach to the back stick, and then Patterson just having stuff to do, and then just getting up to head it back down into the floor, into the corner. It was so beautiful. It was such a wonderful goal.
It was a Fletcher-esque effort, really, wasn't it? Because he was past the far post, so he had to get it back on target. He got it down between the defenders. He did so much with that head.
Yeah, he absolutely baffled it with the angle of getting it so far down, and on that angle, the keeper the Reading keeper. I'm not sure who exactly it was. That was Raphael. Had no chance whatsoever.
Cabral. Yeah. So and I think that we then had another fairly decent chance. There was Patterson sort of had another effort that just went wide. So we were looking dangerous on the break. I think we're not we're not in a position where we can go toe to toe with the better teams in this league. I don't know how far down the table you have to go before we feel comfortable going toe to toe with the team, but certainly I think the top, the playoff contenders, we're self-aware enough to know we just don't have the attacking prowess to kind of duke it out with them. So we have to be careful. We have to be clever with the way we play. And we were doing a good job of not letting them have any possession where we didn't want them to, and then when we got the ball, looking very effective with it. And again, it wasn't just launching balls. We were having to play through the phases. I think the players we have mean, even if it is Tony Pulis's sort of first desire is to go long, we just don't have the personnel to do that particularly well. So we have to play through people like Harris and Bannon. Those players need to come into the way that things work. I did then again put silly fouls because this game, this weekend's game, giving fouls away around the box just seems to be a habit that is baked in bone deep in this set of players at the moment.
Yes.
And unfortunately, another thing that seems to be all too prevalent is making reckless challenges. So 29th minute, the game pivots on Shaw launching into a tackle. He did get a touch on the ball, but we know now that really doesn't. It's neither here nor there when both feet are off the floor and you've gone studs first. I'm sure you can make a case for it not being a red card, but I think in this day and age, you're expecting that card to come out. Watching it in real time, it doesn't get better on replay.
No, I think again, I'm really thinking. I think about what you were kind of saying. I really think the event is really amplified by the Reading player who went down, who I can't recall who exactly it was. Do you happen to know?
It was the fullback, wasn't it? Was it Richards?
Right.
Pretty sure it was Richards.
Him going down in a heap and rolling around doesn't really kind of help proceedings. No. I think everything that you do really amplifies. It's a series of knee-jerk reactions to moments, right? It's very much, it's a game built on moments. I think you've amplified the heat by doing such a thing. I think the frustrating thing is, I think for a lot of Wednesdayites is it's not really, it's never consistent across the leagues. It's never consistent across referees. I feel like there's some people who would probably see that as a yellow.
But I think the thing is, what you can't control is what the referee thinks about the game or how the other player reacts. What you can control is your own body and what you do with it. And I think it is a tackle made out of frustration. He's gone in hard, and it's because he's chasing a mistake that's been made. And so it's just poor decision making, and he puts himself in a situation where he allows the ref to make maybe a harsh decision. He allows the Reading player to look like they've been murdered and had the leg chopped off. Unfortunately, that's the way players react in those situations, because they know it forces the referee's hand. We had a moment in this weekend's game where Odebajo went in for a tackle. I think it was a perfectly fair tackle. I think if it was a foul, they both fouled each other. This is when he picked up his yellow card. Yes. But when Odebajo's kind of pretty much dusting himself off, ready to get up, and Bundia's rolling around, holding his ankle, and the Norwich players are then pointing to their injured player on the floor. So the referee is kind of, the narrative that's told after the event is, look what he did to their guy. I don't want to see Wednesday crowding around the ref and rolling around like that, but
no.
unfortunately,
it works.
It happens and it works. Yeah, I don't think referees are very good. What annoyed me, one thing that annoyed me this game with Reading, it was on Sky, and just so much love for Reading on Sky. Really,
of course,
could not get enough of Reading. And in particular, the little bumfluff winger Elise or whatever, they really, every touch he had, I didn't think he played particularly well, but they just got so excited every time he got anywhere near the ball. He did, his best thing was he hit the post with a very good free kick, but I think he kind of had he had the rest of the night off, I think, after that. But one thing that gets said around football, it's a cliche. There's many footballing cliches, and most of them are quite annoying. But you can tell by the reaction of the players is the worst one for me, because you can't. Players are cheats. Players will claim that black is white and the sky's red.
Exactly.
Because they're fierce competitors and they'll fight tooth and nail for every decision. I've seen so many players kick the ball straight out and put their hand up for
a throw-in. I know. Well, I've even seen Wednesday players do that as well. It seems a bit half-hearted and it seems a bit token. But the funny thing is, one time out of 50, it's going to work.
Yeah, you know. But it's just so annoying that suddenly, when it's a foul in the box, we should go by the players. You can tell by the players' reaction most of the time. No, you can't. You can never tell by the players' reaction. And half the players saying it is a penalty, and the other half saying it's not. So which group of players are we going to believe? And you do end up with some refs that end up like reffing the game almost as a democracy. You know, like a foul happens, like count the hands. Okay. 4 hands up for the home team, only 3 for the away team. So I think that's a home free kick. But it does drive me daft, because the game became, wave after wave of Reading attacks. They had several shouts for penalties of varying degrees of sort of deservedness, But yeah, that coming back to the pundits in the studio, and you can tell by the players' reaction. Players throw themselves to the ground every single touch, and the players around them claim for things. I just don't think they're the worst people. They're the last person you should ask for their opinion in the situation. Speak to your refereeing team and use your eyes. Do not go by the players' reaction. That's not the way to tell. Did you enjoy after the red card? I've got Dom's coming on. Dom's got his coat on. Dom's reading the binder.
I love the shots of Iorfa he's come out of the library and he's got the Encyclopedia Britannica of set plays, whatever it was. It's now laminated landscape. It's that was something I liked.
It was rather funny. I suppose that's a decision. Both games this week, how you come away feeling about things might, in a way, depend on where you stand in terms of a couple of decisions. So I think that decision to not bring Dominic Iorfa on and wait till half time to make that change.
Yeah,
that feels like a kind of dicey decision to have made, given that they managed to score in the 43rd minute and equalise Reading. The kind of what if moment is, if we bring on Iorfa, do we deal better with that set piece? Do we not give away the foul beforehand? Does that happen? And do we then go into the second half where things? Well, I mean, the second half was a lot just constant pressure really as well. But we had a shape set up to try and deal with that as well as we could. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a little bit harsh to sort of say that's what kind of ended up being a draw, because knowing how the second half went, but it just was. It was definitely a decision. And yet hilariously,
we looked out massively on the end of 3 penalty shouts that were pretty credible all around.
Yeah, I was feeling kind of bullish on the evening. I think the handball is the one that's...
The handball's the one that's the Stonewalla, in my opinion, out of a lot of them.
I don't think there was any intention from Reach. I think he genuinely thought he was going to clear it with his foot and was as surprised as anybody that it hit his arm. But but that doesn't change the fact, and now the rule doesn't allow for the fact that you can accidentally handball. There's no such thing. Intention doesn't come into it. So that absolutely should have been a penalty. It would have been very annoying because Wildsmith's right behind it. It wasn't a good shot. I think Wildsmith would have had a very easy save if Reach hadn't have stopped it with his arm, but it undoubtedly that should have been a penalty. I think the Odebajo one would have been harsh. You've seen them given, and you're sort of expecting it to be given.
But I've also seen them given because I don't think... I think there's two things here, Rich, which is like... and that's something we can kind of come onto later when we look at, the review of the Norwich game today. There's a lot of gamesmanship that needs to be played on both ends. Yeah. And frankly, it's too... I'm going to put it this way just because it sounds very, very cynical, but I think it's ultimately, as well as being whatever happened and whether it's a foul or not, I think there's a lot to think about. There's two performances. There's a performance of the player who's defending the ball. Yeah. And the player who's attacking the ball. And, you can say in a lot of situations that sometimes the winning performance, unfortunately, is you have those players with the skills and the gamesmanship to go down convincingly and to take a penalty. But also, Moses Odebajo is not the person who you want on the other side of that. No. For a defensive, for someone to say, I've definitely seen Wednesday players who've had more of that skill in that situation to actually make it look like they just did something very clumsy when they've just mullered and brought down the passing player, right?
I mean, Reach, case in point. I think if Reach looks sheepish or, kind of reacts differently, a referee who's on the fence or a linesman that thinks he might have seen something, you maybe give them the nudge towards making that big decision. But Reach absolutely brilliantly just deadpanned it. There was nothing. He didn't give anything away at all. Because if he'd sort of looked pleadingly at the referee, for instance, then the ref might be thinking, oh, what did he do? Yeah. And I think Odebajo, unfortunately, well, one, he has a clumsy... He's handsy in the way he defends. He's clumsy in the way he runs. He does have these clashes with players a lot. But also... he then instantly kind of looks pleadingly towards the ref. So yeah, I do get what you're saying. Like he's almost like he's adding to the side of his own guilt in all these situations. Mm-hmm. Maybe because of history being so often, on that side of things for him. He gives away a heck of a lot of penalties. Yeah. Or certainly has for Sheffield Wednesday. I don't know about his career prior to Wednesday, but I mean, he was giving out one a game at a stage last season. So I think that one, to me, that's the best case. That's the most likely case out of the other three.
The one, was it Borna kind of volleyed the guy's legs? I thought that was weak.
That was really weak. That was really weak. Weakest. And then I thought the other one, the Reading player,
was that Harris who was defending it for us?
Yes, it was Harris. I think. I'm trying to think who it was from them. Was it Home?
I'm not sure.
Laurent, maybe, I don't know. But basically, he clearly had a big handful of shorts, and he pulled down the Wednesday player. To the point where it was like it was almost getting to the point where it was stopped being useful for him, but he still kept hold. It was a really bizarre bit of attacking to do. I've not seen many attackers use the grab of the shorts to kind of muscle people around in quite that.
No.
But I think for him, I think he thought he was being clever because the linesman couldn't see it, but the referee had a great view of the fact that suddenly Harris's waistband had expanded by about 30 inches. So that one just, I don't think it was ever going to get given, but it gives a picture of the game as it was, which was panic really from Wednesday and lots of near chances for Reading. Although, interestingly, towards the end, I thought they kind of ran out of puff and ideas, Reading. It might have been that they were a bit defeated by the decisions being turned down. But like, I'm always surprised when it's like the 93rd minute and you're passing it around your back four. And I sort of think, He's going to blow the whistle at any moment here. You want to just get this forward, surely. I'm just going to quickly have a look at my notes. So we made 3 changes at half time. That was exciting. But it meant that we were purely just defending. Harris up top on his own is an interesting new idea. We saw a bit of that again today. He's got the pace to keep people toes. He just doesn't have much physical presence other than that. And I did say that he was sort of suffering from an inverse Peter Crouch or Ati Nuhiu syndrome. So whereas those two are too big to win any fouls, Harris was deemed too small to win any fouls. Because there's a couple of times defenders went through the back. When we managed to get a decent ball out to him, which he could control on his chest or with his feet, he got just steamrolled by their defenders. And normally I would expect to get some fouls in those situations. I know Jordan Rhodes would get a couple of fouls in those situations, but he just didn't get anything given to him. So there was no outlet. There was no sort of release of the pressure. We did see some wonderful saves from Wildsmith, particularly first half. His save from Semedo's volley was outstanding. I think it was sort of past him and he claw it over. I also thought holding on to Joao's flick from the corner was really good because that was a crowded box. If he'd let that bounce free, that who knows what would have happened. But then he didn't cover himself in glory with the goal. I think Patterson's most at fault.
Yes.
He thoroughly lost the battle with Joao, but there was moments where it felt like Wildsmith maybe could have come for the ball. It was sort of close enough to him that was an option. And when he came for the save, you had a very unflattering thing that you said on the text, Luke. I don't know if you remember it.
Yes, I said, and I'm going to use the Queen's English here, he looked like a frog that shat himself.
But I think by and large he did do well. He ended up actually in the team of the week.
I would agree with that. I was going to say, actually, so what I felt I saw from the highlights, it was quite funny. So this was a time when, a man like myself who is in his mid-30s and very much in the throes of being irrelevant, even though I am fairly up on things, but one thing I never really understand and never really got into is TikTok. Mind you, I did actually install TikTok just so I could see Josh Windass doing his little celebration, which was fun. So I followed on Instagram Wednesday, which I've been quite delayed with. And one of their stories that kind of came up on there was basically their TikTok, which was some dank music for the kids.
Okay.
And lots of kind of high intensity, Skrillex drill and bass type, whatever it is, over lots of footage of highlights from the games, which was basically like the really great goal that we scored. And then essentially Wednesday just performing heroic defending for the next kind of minute and a half, basically. So, I really saw especially that from the highlights. I watched the first half and then I was having some stream issues and I thought I'm just going to turn this off and do other things, listen to the commentary. And I felt like I'd really seen it all before, especially conceding before half time. But from what I really saw from the highlights, including, all the fun deluge of all those penalty shouts, was some really impressive goalkeeping from Joe Wildsmith. I think he definitely was man of the match for that game.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, it was some of it was absolutely top draw. The other thing that happened in the game that's worth noting, it obviously had an impact in the match against Norwich. Luongo picked up his 5th yellow card of the season, leading to his new nickname being Infraction Mass. But it was a good foul. He took one for the team again. He's good at doing that. A good foul in inverted commas. It saved a break from happening, but it's a shame that we always miss him when he's not playing. But moving on, I think there's not much more to talk about in terms of midweek news. We should move on to today's game, if you're all right with that, Luke.
Yeah, let's go at it.
It led to a very intriguing solution, not having Luongo. There has been threads on Owls Talk where the idea Iorfa in midfield has come up again and again and again.
Sure.
And I don't I haven't paid enough attention to know whether that is just one person who will be very pleased that they got their wish, or whether there is a kind of a cult of followers for the Iorfa in midfield ideal. But it happened. I couldn't quite work out what the, to put a kind of number formation on things. We had 3 at the back. Odebajo and Reach were playing wing backs. We definitely had 3 in central midfield, which was Patterson, Bannon, and Iorfa. And Windass was definitely up top. Harris was kind of playing right wing.
Yes.
Just randomly. He didn't necessarily have a counterpart on the other side. I don't know whether that's because they're strong on the left, maybe, potentially, Norwich, or whether they're weak on the left.
What did you think about Odebajo's placing? Because that was the thing, I especially looking at the lineup, my disappointment that came to this was seeing that Shaw was suspended for 3 games, obviously. Luongo's out for 1 game. And Luke was thinking, right, finally, I get to see a bit of Fizzy, Deli Bashuru, FDB, and maybe even the other Z, Izzy Brown. The other ZZY that we have within the team alongside Fizzy and Izzy. Kidding.
Or the ex, Alex Hunt.
Yes, Rich. That's exactly what I was thinking. And then effectively we've just gone with, we have these other prime-made centre mid options, and then it's like, well, you're going to play some of the centre mids, and then Pulis just flips the rule book. Boom. That's what he's doing. He's got his binder. The kids are doing their bottle flips. He's doing the rule book flip. He's trying to flip it over, see if he can get to land on a thing. He's just doing it all the time, and I'm getting frustrated with this. And then he's just putting players wherever. So
do you think that was what was in the folder midweek, and it was he was just teeing him up for it?
I think so.
You're going to be playing midfield. That's not his voice, but it's such a weird accent.
Sounded a bit Stephen Merchant for a second there, Rich.
Well, it's because he's not Welsh in his accent, is he? I know he is Welsh.
Yeah, I get it.
But you couldn't do. He doesn't talk like that, does he? It's more like that.
There's a little bit of that, isn't there?
It's a tricky one to do.
It's a tough one.
But just if it was like you're going to be you're going to be playing midfield on Saturday, so start reading the rules. Start reading up on the rules. Get an early start.
I don't know, because Flash Score was saying it was a 4-4-2, which was ridiculous. Because I think again they're going.
They put Odebajo up front, didn't they?
They put Odebajo up front, yeah. What did our friends at Who Scored? Which I'm such a big fan of, as we all know. What did they say?
They've got it as a 5-4-1.
5-4-1. Okay. But I couldn't work out where Odebajo was, because he seemed to kind of be, there's this kind of mentality of it's a 4-5-1. Oh, but this player's in the midfield, and then he converts up top when it's attacking. It felt like, oh, but when we're defending, Odebajo drops back into right back. That's what it felt like it was. Because they kept saying, well, it's a
in terms of average. Oh, sorry, go on.
It's a back three of. They was the commentary team on my feed, which was the Radio Sheffield, whoever the Chava from Radio Sheffield alongside Brian Laws was. I think it was Jonathan something, that chap.
Yeah,
that guy. It seemed like they seemed to say it was a back three, and then they were saying
it was definitely a back three.
But then Odebajo kept dropping into right back, I think.
Well, I think he was right wing back. So I think it was a back three. But then I think because Harris had a free roll.
Right.
Tended towards the right wing in that free roll. So it's almost like, it's like an asymmetric. It was like an asymmetric 4-4-1-1 or something like that. It was odd, but I think Harris was the remit was to roam, presumably. I don't know. It's hard now. Average positions look weird now because obviously he spent part of the second half genuinely playing up top on his own, so it's got him almost as central as Windass and further forward than Windass. But I don't think that was right.
So the thing I want to say was though, it was also really good to see that Bannon was well, because that was an issue coming into this. Apparently Bannon went off with an ankle. Apparently his ankle was swollen.
Yeah.
Well, I was worried he was not going to play at all. In which case, we're going to have more. We're going to have more bizarre players not playing centre mid who, while Brown and FDB look on and lament their career choices. As much as I was baffled by what's going on, I mean, there was a real dash of excitement to the hijinks and chaos with who was where. And the thing I want to say from this game was I was really liking the movements from our players a lot, because I've seen so many Wednesday teams away from home where it's a 4-5-1 and everybody's just so static.
Yes.
There's we don't really do a lot of Sheffield Wednesday. This is the thing of looking at, I was making a comment to you watching Reading and saying, wow, signing young, agile, quick players who can move around the pitch. Yeah. What a real revelation that is. Wow, they must have really surprised everybody. It's like, no, that's exactly what successful football teams should be doing. And it's Wednesday don't do that. We have these players who are so immobile, lack so much agility, they don't get around the pitch. So the thing that I want to say was, I think the thing that's really nice about what we're seeing about this Pulis side is the fact we are working on the shape so much. That like we have a 4-5-1 and everybody moves around as part of that shape. But then I think when the ball gets further up, then players are covering in different positions and moving up and graduating up the pitch with that. And I felt I saw a lot of movement today within that shape. Like, I mean, Patterson was all over the place.
Yeah.
In the best way. It's not like I'm saying it's all over the shop like he was out of position. Like he was doing great work wherever he was on the pitch. And I think Odebajo was largely doing great work all over the pitch as well. I think there were a lot of players who did. I don't know how to... I don't think I can really... there's a point where Iorfa, I think, looked really good in the middle of the park. And I think there was a great point where he went on a real marauding run. Mm-hmm. Which I think he was hard done to, but that's another story.
I thought that. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Just looking at Iorfa in that role, I sort of feel like the people who suggested it could probably come away saying, see, he did it. Just like I said, he was physical and quick and the danger. And I really feel like the people who say, yeah, but he won't have as much time, he's going to look awkward, I feel like they could say see as well. Like, it was this weird mixture of performances where in some ways it was a duck to water. He looked very comfortable there, and as you said, there was a couple of bursting runs which were genuinely very exciting, and you'd love to see more of that from a player from midfield. I mean, I cannot remember the last time I saw athleticism like that from the midfield. I mean, I genuinely am struggling to think of a player that would knock a ball past a man and beat them for pace going around them and stuff. And that's an exciting thing to have. He's also 6'3" or whatever, which means that we're not such a pushover in midfield. We've got lots of tiny midfielders. So that was exciting. But there were times where he got caught in possession. There were times where he looked awkward. His first touch let him down, because you just get more time to make those mistakes at the back. Most teams don't press the defenders so much that they're pushed into those sort of mistakes, whereas in midfield the pressure is just naturally higher. There's more. It's a more congested area of the pitch. So weirdly, I sort of feel like both sides of that debate can feel like they saw what they expected to see, but I wouldn't hate seeing it again.
No, I thought it was good. I was quite impressed with that, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. And it was a bright, intense start to the game. We had a corner cleared off the line. Harris taking a corner or two. That was interesting to see.
That was lovely. And what a great flick on from Burner that was.
Yeah. We saw that, I think, maybe the first positive thing to come from a long throw on the 28th minute. Bannon got that volley that went straight down the keeper's throat, but still.
The cute yet pithy volley.
Yes, yeah.
I really like the moment at the 10th minute with Harris doing some really great work to get the ball down there, and you think, oh, he's going to lose it because it was so difficult, and then he managed to just basically burn whoever the Norwich defender, get a few touches on it, and stung the ball in and put it out. Got a corner out of it, which I think was pretty good for that moment. I 15-minute mark, that was the bit I said I felt good for Iorfa. He did real magnificent sprints. Norwich won a very cheap foul from the Canary defender, acting like an actual canary that had just popped its clogs. can we talk? Can we talk about? I'm just kind of maybe catching you up in terms of notes here. I'll join you at the 28th minute. I've got a few more here. We've mentioned this a bit before, right? But with the 22nd minute with Odebajo getting a yellow for a perfectly timed challenge, that was some really garbage refereeing. That was really annoying.
Yeah, it wasn't like the short tackle, was it? This was whole. He got the whole of the ball. It wasn't like a touch of the ball and then slipping over the top of it. It was there was unambiguous that he went in and won. It was a hard tackle, but he won the ball and won it well. And I don't think there's any foul in that at all.
But they didn't even get a free kick from it, did they?
No, but he did give him a yellow card, which is...
No, I don't understand. Because Odebajo went there. They both went down.
They both went down.
It seemed like a clash between the two of them.
Wendy went down like he'd been shot. He stayed still, which is when you're really injured. Do you remember when Ronaldo figured that out?
I do, yeah. There's always the real cultured nature between that of like, do you use one of your hands to kind of how do you hit the ground with your other hand? How do you thump the other hand? You try and stay still for the rest of your body. It's a big acting decision in that moment.
I've got to say that Buendia got on my wick.
Buendia was the one who lost his rag at the halftime whistle, wasn't he? He kind of thumped the ground like a little
floor and stuff like that.
I hope he busts his hand punching a wall one day. That would be funny.
I hope the floor punches him back. I couldn't believe he didn't get a yellow for dissent. He was everything to him was screaming at the referee and gesticulating wildly. He just came across like such a prick. I would have, if I was the ref, I would have booked him just for that. I think that if you look in the back of the rules, that is one of them.
Yeah, prick. Just put in my notes to the FA. He was being a fucking prick.
General arseholery.
Speaking of things along those lines, Grant Hanley, I said he's a shithouse, but that actually means it's like he is shit and he's built like a house.
That was another one.
The Windass offside. Can I Yes. I made a big note about that. That's really, really irate because he was offside, and we knew he was offside because this is something else I can get onto because the Norwich fans told me he was offside miles before it happened. Even more delayed before, the linesman puts his flag up and the referee blows a whistle. Yeah. But there's no point to Hanley clipping the heels of Windass at that point.
It crunched him.
I know. And then the Norwich fans were weirdly booing as they almost wanted their centre-back to pick up his token yellow.
Yeah.
The ref gave us nothing in terms of kind of yellow cards. Maybe he already thought they were already yellows because they played it.
It was extraordinary the effort that Skip had to put in to win his yellow card. Like he got Odebajo in a reverse headlock while he was running. Or was it Harris? It was Odebajo, wasn't he? He had one hand on his head, one hand around his neck.
That was Skip, wasn't it?
Skip that got he's the only player that got a yellow for Norwich.
Was a real dirty bastard.
It was
a really awful moment. I said it should be a red wanker. Such Premiership pedigree to act like a massive cunt. I'm really earning that explicit mark against this podcast today, aren't I, Rich?
You are.
Wow.
And once again, I kind of teed you up for one of them, but you've really made it your own.
Can I just go back to that the Grant Hanley situation? I actually made that note about it being a shithouse literally just before he did that. So it was actually out of context of that. It's just I just think he's just a crap defender, and I'm kind of staggered he's found his way at Norwich, to be honest with you. But anyway, I said the ref's given nothing in terms of cards. Jared Gillette, who we may remember for him dismissing Massimo Luongo. And that was the first time we came up against him. Remember, hilariously, we said that, we might get a bit of benefit from this because he's an Aussie, just like Action Mess.
Action Mess.
But I said Jared Gillette's garbage pandering to Delia and the X-1000 blood-blaying yellow Statler and Waldorfs in the crowd. Other celebrity fans, Stephen Fry would write, Gillette is my knob pot.
Very good. That's very, very good.
So again, another unfairness. I'm gonna have to say, I don't know if you saw this, Rich. Did you see about the Wednesday fans who got a room at the Norwich hotel?
No, with a view.
With a view, yes,
Oh,
and they put
nice.
their Worksop House flag out the
Oh,
window.
excellent.
Of one of the windows, I guess, because the other window would have, they needed the other window to see.
Yeah, they needed the view.
See what was going on with the view. Apparently, that Wednesdayite actually got the police called on him, which is really, really petty. Can I just say, I think it's really, really, really garbage that Norwich can bring fans to their game, but you can't have Wednesdayites there. I think that's just horrifically unfair.
We're in a succession of just baffling things with the coronavirus response now in the UK. So so that sort of situation where there was a situation at a lower league club where they had a pub on the grounds, and it was the team were playing outside.
Yes, was that Chesterfield who were playing? They were away at
Not sure. Yeah, but they had to black out the windows so they couldn't watch the game live, but they could watch it on a stream in the pub.
Yes.
It's because we're reaching a situation where this is not about science. It's about winning points with the public. And essentially, I think 2,000 fans is a PR stunt. I don't think it's enough fans to help clubs. It's a trifling portion of any of the major clubs' fan bases. I mean, it's next to nothing of it's worth 10% of a match day for us. It's a pathetic sop, and it was just a bit of positive PR because essentially they were leaving so many areas still in pretty strict lockdown measures. It's so weird to see one stand. All these people clamored into one stand as well. Like if you're going to do this, if it's about public safety, you'd want them spread, wouldn't you? You wouldn't want them all forced into one area.
Yeah.
It's just.
But then I'm sure the club's
to do with any sound advice. It's all just PR nonsense, basically, which is why it doesn't make sense.
Sure,
Sorry.
but I guess also, this is a costly time for all football clubs, right? But I'm sure Norwich, they're saying, well, why would we open, several stands? Because it's going to cost us more in terms of staffing and manning them, get them all into one. But they seemed all very clustered together. I remember one moment when Patterson took a throw in, and a lot of them seemed very close to the pitch and to the situation. It's just weird. It's just weird. And then obviously, you'd have shots of the Norwich fans celebrating them scoring, and the angle it was from made them look like they're all very close together. So
to me, it does look very. I suppose they're outside, which is a mitigating factor, but it does look very close together. I don't know why it can't be It should be like a row, several seats sideways, and at least a row either side. But it didn't necessarily look that way. It sort of looked like people were spaced out width-wise. It's like queues. You go into somewhere like a post office that's got a snake-type queue, and people are 2 meters apart, in one dimension, but they're right next to each other in the other dimension because they're snaked around each other. And you're like, this doesn't make any sense. It needs to work both ways if it's going to work at all. I don't know. It's very weird. We're not going to fix it on this podcast, unfortunately. We can pick our way through this this performance. I mean, the first half. I think a really strong showing against a very good team.
One thing I thought was really refreshing from my halftime thoughts. I said I really liked Iorfa in the middle of the park a lot. I think he did a lot of work there. It was really great to see. I want to say it's refreshing to have a centre-back back and then go, let's play them in addition to the other defenders, as opposed to, we've got this guy back and he's better than the other shit that we've got at centre-back. So let's chuck him in to just make way for that, and then we'll just keep doing that. That was Gary Monk's work, isn't it? That's just there's no continuity. Well, there's no continuity because players are still constantly injured. But you're also saying there's no continuity because the players aren't very good. So we've got to kind of, whenever we get someone back who's fit, we've got to try something else. So it was, even though I feel that this isn't a particularly great, defense, I think we're making do. I think we're doing pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Thanks to the shape. I think that's really helping the players, and I think that's really helping get good, even to the point like Van Aken.
He's been an absolute revelation this season. I also loved. We didn't comment on it in passing, but he had a blooming decent effort from distance in the first half as well. The 38th minute, he whistled one past the post.
That was a nice crack. Like it was good.
But I think that was the evidence of the shape and how well, by and large, things are working. It's this feels so strange. So to kind of look at the last 2 weeks in terms of this podcast and being a Wednesday fan, last week we'd got a kind of nominally positive result, but it felt crap. And this week, it was gutting to lose out late on like we did, but weirdly, I feel more positive about the performance than almost any other Pulis performance so far. Like this,
me too.
Gives me more hope for the future.
This was brilliant. This is as good as it's been, even though.
Yeah, and probably as good as it's been this season. Really, I think probably. I don't know. It's hard. There were good times. There were good times with Gary, weren't there? You remember?
I guess so. Well, I remember that was. I've almost made a Gary Monk reference, which is a Gary Monk Richard Miller reference. We kept saying at half time, but we threatened, and I think if we carry on, then I was thinking at half time, and I hate saying this because I feel like now I'd put a mockers on it in my own kind of dabbling of digital Evernote, but I'm sure there's plenty of other Wednesdayites did the same. We could carry on and we'll win the game. The rich Gary Monk reference is suck on those oranges, lads.
Yes, yeah. What a nice chew on that pith. You're doing well. I think.
Tell you what, 2 bags of Haribo. I've double the amount I've allotted to you. Oh.
I don't. So I haven't heard. We try and sort of the podcast we try and record before all the hot takes come in. So it's a kind of fresh. We're coming in on seasoned by other things that we've heard by and large. That's kind of what we attempt to capture. So I haven't heard the reasoning behind Iorfa coming off, but I suppose in a way it's another big change. That happened in the 53rd minute. Pelupessy came on for Iorfa. It felt like an odd timing for the change. I hope Iorfa isn't injured. Potentially it could just be he's been out for a long time and we're looking after him. I hope that's the case, but I don't know. Have you heard anything else about that?
I heard snifter of a thigh injury, which is really disappointing. Because that was a disappointing thing when he went off. I was like, I liked everything up to the point where we conceded 2 goals. But behind that, I was like, it was a small criticism, but I'm like, I'm not a fan of these substitutions.
Well, so the next big thing in the game obviously is our goal. It was very similar to the goal in midweek, but probably a better version. I think it was a better cross. It was deeper and dropped. I mean, Windass is the only man in the Norwich box. They had all of their defence back, and Reach dropped it on his head, and it was a fairly simple finish for Windass. Brilliant goal. Really fantastic goal. And reward for... I thought Windass did a lot of thankless work in the first half. He had to fight very, very hard to get any time on the ball whatsoever, and generally made good use of it when he got it. I don't think he gave it away very often, which was nice to see. So it was a nice reward for him, and a great goal for us, and deserved, I think, in terms of the flow of the game.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I thought we would, I thought we were looking like the team who was going to score.
Yeah.
Even before that, I thought there was some great moments. I'll just kind of skim over quickly. 48th minute, I thought it was unfortunate that Harris kind of overran the ball, kind of on the line. He kind of had it kind of down, but that was a really good break. Odebajo even having a good shot at the 57th minute. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And in the build for that, there was some really brilliant 1-2 breaking from Reach and Bannon.
I like some of the build-up play, and these little combinations are nice. It's nice to see these little partnerships growing and things clicking. And I think Reach and Bannon have combined quite effectively a few times in the last few games. It was nice to see. And it was a decent effort. Odubajo's like, I don't know whether it's that it's a recurrence that I haven't become jaded, but I sort of feel like he could absolutely crack one in. With Harris, I'm sort of past the point of like, I just like, oh, you're going to curl it wide. Like that is, I've now seen it so often. My expectation is that he doesn't hit the target in those situations.
I think maybe from Odubajo is that we're actually kind of seeing, I don't know if we're seeing a different player, but I think we're seeing him in a different mold. And I think we're seeing a different position. So I don't think it's untoward to start to think and start get a little bit giddy at the possibility of what could he be, what could he have in his locker and what could he pull out?
Yeah.
I mentioned previous last season, I think it was on the podcast, Westwood pulling a poodled rabbit out of a hat. But maybe there's a nice cute little cartoon bunny rabbit that Moses could pull out of his one. Who knows?
Well, fingers crossed. I think at least he's still a worry at the back, and particularly I think when somebody gets him isolated one-on-one, he's not assertive, and then he's overly physical, which is a bad combination because he lets himself get dragged into dangerous areas, and then he's over the top in terms of the physicality. So he gives away penalties, he gives away free kicks because of that.
But again, I think today was weird because I think this is maybe the first time I've seen him under Pulis near the back. Because he's been a lot further up the pitch, and it's like he's a pacey player.
Yeah,
he's got some real pace to burn, and he seems to have quite a good amount of stamina with it.
Huge energy. Yeah, it's just an unfortunate sort of hitch in his game. I don't know whether, because you are talking about a fairly senior pro now, so whether I think we make the same mistake with Harris to an extent, but how many new tricks can you learn when you're this late on in your career?
Yeah.
I still sort of, you can be hopeful. People can take on new things, and provided the environment's right and the instructions right, then I don't think it's necessarily like a done deal of how somebody is, how somebody plays. But with Odubajo, it's just that, the Reading game, maybe that's a penalty that he gives away. He did give away, it was very soft, but he gave away the foul that they scored their equaliser from. It's not like bad luck that he ends up in those situations all the time. It's sort of an inherent, he doesn't react properly in those situations as you should if you're a good defender, and it lands him in trouble more often than not. But I, as you say, outside of that, there's been a lot to like about the way Odubajo's played this season. He's certainly, I think he's won a lot of trust from fans with the way he's played.
But again, it's a difficult thing though. Like, I don't know. It's nice having more pace within this team, and I think Pulis sees that, and
the energy, that break,
the energy,
where the yellow card came from. That's late on in the game. He's played the majority of these two games this week, and he's still bursting past people. He's still got that break of pace, and that was a really dangerous situation for Norwich. Had they not pulled him down, that was 2-on-2 or 2-on-3.
It was an exceptionally, we talked about this before, exceptionally cynical foul, professional foul from Skip.
Yeah.
But that was really annoying because it seemed like a really promising, dangerous break.
Well, two players with bags of pace running at you is frightening as a defender, especially if you're a big lumbering centre-back like Grant Hanley. I imagine Harris could run between his legs without him really noticing. like Jack and the Beanstalk. So 6 minutes after we scored, we brought on Palmer for Windass.
Sorry, I think it was actually maybe I don't know, maybe it was Windass. He talked about having a thigh injury because I didn't see why
there was no need to change it, was there? It was if it's working.
I don't know if and that's an interesting thing with Palmer is that he's not lightning quick, but he's still pretty athletic. So I don't know if that was the mentality to kind of have more legs at that point. But I don't know. We've talked about this before. There's no great, amazing ideas on the bench, right?
No,
and
once again, almost everybody on is slightly worse than the people that are on the pitch. I don't know that that's fair on Palmer, but it's you're certainly not. There's no.
I'm surprised he didn't start. I was a bit staggered because I was going through the lineup and I'm like, "Where's Palmer?" Because I still feel like Palmer should be in the starting 11 pretty much every game.
We changed to a slightly more standard formation, didn't it?
Yeah, we've even seen half decent performances from him at left back. We see some very good performances from left back in previous years.
But then I'm enjoying what Van Aken's doing there as well, and I really do like Liam Palmer. I think he's got so much to offer us. It's unfortunate that we've kind of happened on an effective backline that doesn't involve him. But I've got no qualms with him dropping in when needed, and it's just the shift. It's the shift from it's a defensive move, isn't it? So Palmer drops in at the right wing back position. Odebajo moves up to where Harris is playing, but much more stable. So we go to a four across the midfield with Harris very much on his own up top, kind of doing what he did midweek. Just run. We try and run down lost causes and stop them from just wandering into our half. Although I don't think it was as effective today. I think Reading, it did stop their centre backs having any influence, but actually we did see Hanley in our half. We did see Gibson in our half taking the ball through and sort of causing some problems. So I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that it quite had the desired effect this time round. Although Harris did. I mean, with that we got another chance, 75th minute. Really strong running from Harris. Played a decent ball across to Pelopessi, and Pelopessi got hold of it, but it was straight at the goalkeeper, unfortunately. And that could have been. I mean, that's another what might have been moment, because going 2 goals up in this game, I think Norwich might well have fallen apart.
Right. Can I go back a few minutes before
Please,
that?
yeah.
Just kind of run over a couple of situations. The 68th minute is Harris goes down on a through ball. What do you think about that as a penalty shout?
I'm thinking that might have been the part of the match where my stream was not working. Sorry.
Oh, you missed that. Okay. I thought that was probably... I thought it could be a penalty. I thought that... But then, hilariously, another minute afterwards, Harris looked to get a second attempt at a penalty. And actually, it was a well-timed challenge. It was one where whoever the Norwich player was defending got the ball, but then essentially just afterwards just kind of took Harris, and I think Harris was looking for it. The first one I want to say, I don't think Harris is very good at winning penalties.
No.
I don't know. I mean, this is the thing with Norwich, is like I look at them today and it really irked me for the whole situation, the fact we were away, the fact that Norwich fans are allowed to be there. I get to hear them baying for yellow cards and booing and telling our goalkeeper that he's shit. And, all that kind of stuff that kind of comes from being a fan at games. But we weren't there to have a voice in that, and that was upsetting. And I think that probably had some little bit of influence as well, because...
Possibly, yeah.
I don't think you can kind of discount that. I'm not going to look at that and say that's the reason why we lost. The reason why we lost is... I think there's multiple ways to look at this, but in kudos and, I'm kind of sick of every week coming on this podcast and saying, oh, this team we played today, they're a really good side. Like, it seems like everybody's a good side apart from us right now, which is really heartbreaking. And we played one of those crap teams, and that was Wickham, and we lost. And we absolutely should have.
I think that's the tricky thing with where Pulis has come in, though. We let Monk have that run where it was we should have won every game, and maybe that's not fair. Maybe not win. We should have won every game, but they are games that were all winnable.
We should have got about 6 points from 12 at the very least.
Probably. And the weird thing is that Bournemouth were the one that we beat. That's so.
Well, that was after that, wasn't it?
It was after that run. But out of those 4 games, you're looking at 3 or 5 games. But of those 4 games, you're looking at 3 where we've got to back ourselves. If we're not a relegation side, or if we're not going to get relegated, we've got to back ourselves to take more points than we did in those games. Then you get to Bournemouth where you're like, well, fingers crossed, to an extent. The weird thing is that's the one that we won, and we lost all the other 3. But this has been a very tough period. I agree with you. It feels like we're saying every week, though, this is a good side. But actually, we have come up in terms of a run. This Swansea, Stoke, Reading, Norwich.
That's a pretty tough one.
It's pretty much in this league. That is almost as tough a run as you could get. It's a kind of, you're playing 4 or 5 out of 4 of the top 6 or 7 clubs in the league, undoubtedly there. But I share your frustration.
I know.
We're kind of timidly holding our little shield and hoping for the best.
I know. The next 4 games, is away at Huddersfield, home to Barnsley, away at Nottingham, home to Coventry. Their teams effectively very much around us in this lower half of the table, to various different degrees. So, that's should be, touch wood, a much kinder run. But, we don't know. We'll see what happens. But, that's the thing to look at. Norwich was, they're a team. They've come down. They've got a really impressive side. They've got so much agility, mobility on the ball, so many talented players from deep. They can bring options off the bench. And the thing that I thought was really nasty and I really didn't like is the fact that they've got some nasty players who can kick and punch for every 50-50, And I think that tenacity that they had kept them in this game.
I also think the week caught up with us. I think the hour playing with 10 men caught up with us. I think this is a very good side. I think the consensus favourites to win the league, Norwich. Of all the good sides, they're supposedly the best. Whatever the league table tells. I think at some points today they were like 6th and they were also 1st. It's kind of, we're in that sort of period, and the championship is the championship. But in terms of that squad, that consistency, the manager, etc., it all points towards these are one of the team. If you finish ahead of Norwich, you've probably got promoted this season.
Yes.
So that undoubtedly they're right up there, and we did a tremendous job on them. This wasn't like Reading where it was just shot after shot, chance after chance, escape. Performing miracles to escape. We pretty much handled them. There was not a huge amount that Wildsmith had to do today, and particularly, Pukki is a fine striker, possibly the best striker in this league. And sometimes 1 man against 3 can make a mockery of that system. We've seen it happen for us. We've seen it happen against us. Fletcher loved playing against 3s because he would just vacate the space, and then you got 3 guys doing nothing. And then he just makes, he made the game revolve around him away from those defenders. And he absolutely loved it. I always felt like we were on a good, wicket if they were playing 3 up against Fletcher. So it takes, from the defence talking to each other, that's a huge effort of communication. You've got to keep watching him because it's no one man. You can't. We didn't have somebody following Pukki around. We kept our positions. So that means you always need to make a note of where he is, where everybody is, handing players off. And we did tremendously well at that. You could see players pointing, talking. It's nice to see the shape. It's been incredible how quickly Pulis has made us so much more sturdy in the shape. But it just suddenly broke. And I don't know, it might well be that, you're talking about 2 hours and 20 minutes of just constantly being under pressure. Mentally, the toll that takes is huge. But it was just little things started to break. Wildsmith's kicking was just poor. There's 2 or 3 times where he just handed it straight back to Norwich. And that means the defence doesn't get a moment of respite. Clearing the ball upfield should be, right, let's breathe, let's take 30 seconds, let's check in, let's see where everyone's at. It just wasn't happening because there was one where Wildsmith took a touch, and then the defender was nearly on top of him, and he barely cleared our box with his kick. It went straight up in the air and landed about 10 feet outside of the box. So immediately we're right under pressure again. His next kick went straight to their man on the halfway line. So there was no breathing space, no moments to catch your breath, kind of keep up with them. And you could see how tired we were. Patterson at one point did a long throw that didn't even make the box. I think that kind of it was a powerful showing of just how worn down these players have been by what they've put out on the pitch. But it doesn't make it frustrating. The goals.
Should we go through the goals, the Norwich goals?
Yeah, let's do it. I think we've exhausted the other things.
It was just such a good punch, that first one especially. The fact that they've managed to meg JVA, that was really disappointing to start with. I think the bigger disappointment is how badly Wildsmith did with that one. I really felt Wildsmith should be out closing it down.
He's incredibly slow off his line there. I think he should have done much better with both the goals. I think this one was less skill. I think it's the second goal is a very good shot that required a very good save. This was just simply not reacting in time to the situation, and their player being sharper, fresher. He's just come off the bench. It just looked we just looked leg weary at that moment. I thought that reaction where it went through his legs and kind of he turned himself inside out trying to kind of correct it, but the ball had long gone. I think there was a player directly behind him who, again, if you're sharp, if you're there mentally, if you're there physically, he probably could have reacted to block off the lane that it was going into as well. Yeah.
Was that Lee's at that point? Or
it might well have been. That sort of makes sense. If it was, I thought it was Lee's that was megged, but maybe it was if it was JVA that was megged, then it would have been Lee or Borner. I'm not sure. But there was just another player that, like, you stick a foot out, you kind of block it, maybe it doesn't happen. But again, it was almost just a moment of premonition. We just felt it just sagged. The shape that had been so strong and so good just sagged for like 10 seconds, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And then the goal happened.
Yeah.
Vrancic looks a heck of a player, but I think he got lucky with that pass. It wasn't a great pass. It just went through the player's legs.
I know. It wasn't an incisive through pass.
It was clever. It was clever. Yeah.
I just thought it was fortuitous.
Incredibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second one's a sickener.
I think Reach is the first person who misses out. Reach gives a really half-hearted little kind of... For Reach, who had such a fantastic game, I thought, today, I think he did make a big mistake. Big mistake. Yeah. Huge.
One of the biggest mistakes we've ever had. No, it's a shame. I mean, I'd love to know how far someone like Adam Reach has run across these two games, but he struggles. The run doesn't get tracked properly by anybody. Both the runs were completely untracked by anybody.
Yeah. Just a bit off someone just taking a touch or making a tackle in that situation. It didn't seem too off, No,
not miles off, but enough. That's the tricky thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The second one to me, again, I know everybody's so worried about getting beat at their near post, and we do come down on goalkeepers for getting beat at their near post. But Wildsmith has a habit. He's so worried about the near post. He gives up too much of the goal. This is not the first time we've had this criticism about him. And if you look at his body position, he's like bent in, like he's covering the post already before Aarons hits the shot. He's so paranoid about getting beat at that near post. He gives, even though it's a really tight angle, he gives a huge amount of space to Aarons to hit. He hits it really well. It's a really good shot and a fast shot. So he doesn't have the chance, Wildsmith, then to react and get his hand out. But he'd sort of contorted himself round the post and almost made it impossible for himself to then save it. He's shifted all his momentum, shifted all his body weight into covering the post. Just again, it's churlish. It is not Wildsmith's fault, that goal. I think maybe the first one there's a question mark.
I definitely think the first one he could have done better. Second one I think is more. I think it's unfortunate. I'm going to give like a bit of. It's unfortunate Van Aken getting megged, and the possibility of the second defender, be that Lees, be it Burner, who's not on, not able to get a mop up and get a touch to that, take a bit of the, take it out of his path or take the momentum out of the play, and then what happens next is whatever up. But Wildsmith really should be coming out a lot more for the first one.
Yeah.
Second one feels more of a failure of defending. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's things that should happen before. It's a bit like the Reading goal. Like it shouldn't. It's a failure of defending that Wildsmith is in that position to be exposed. It's just, again, this nagging back of your mind feeling that could a better goalkeeper could we have avoided one of these with a better goalkeeper? And I think yes is the answer.
Well, that's most Wednesday conceded goals this season.
I know. It's a shame because Joe was. Wildsmith undoubtedly pulled off. I think the save from the volley midweek was right up there. I mean, world class, whatever that means. But that was a tremendous reaction save. It's sort of straight at him, but it's past him before he manages to get a hand to it. That's a really, really good save. But it's it's the guys that consistently do that, and I think that's where what we've been spoiled. I think Westwood, I think Lee Grant, I think Scott Carson. I don't know. There's been gaps between those. That is not a a gapless list of goalkeepers. But we have been blessed with some tremendous point-winning, point-saving goalkeepers.
Yeah.
So we are judging, but we're judging on we're marking harshly because we know what can be. It's just a shame to feel that we are a bit deficient there. I still hope, alongside a striker, I hope we're looking for an opportunity on the goalkeeping side of things.
Me too.
Because Westwood would make the sort of save that Wildsmith made, and it was a very good save. That was like Westwood would make one of those a game.
I know.
That was kind of like par for the course. And he'd also rush out and block things and do. It's the command of the box. It's the bravery. It's the timing. All those things have huge effects. We did have a go, which I was pleased about. We brought on Kachunga and Izzy Brown to try and have a go at them. We had a really close header from Patterson.
Yes.
I've got to say, Izzy Brown looks rusty as balls. Almost every cut was terrible when he came on.
Yep. I mean, 91st minute made a note. Brown does a poo again after a great cutback from Reach.
He had 2 or 3 moments where a little bit of quality, a little bit of guile, he might have made something, and he looked awful. This, in terms of cameos, that make
I know. Which is disappointing because I'm looking at this team and thinking, there's plenty of great midfield players I think we have at the club who we can bring in this situation, and you've espoused all of them, and then I'm like, I'm not being vindicated by his cameos of appearance. It's not good. It's really not good. No. The last 3 appearances I think from him have been poor. Did he get on midweek? I didn't see the second half of midweek. Did he get on?
I think he did. I've closed that tab to allow myself to zero in on what was important. No, he didn't. Okay, I thought maybe he had, but no, he didn't get in.
Well, definitely the last 2 appearances, the ones that we've covered on this podcast in full, have been poor.
Isn't this the tricky thing though, where there's no kind of consistency to reserve football or under 23s football? Like,
well, they can play, but I know they can play, but they don't ever seem to. Like, how many under 23s matches have we been saying, oh, this could be Shea Dunkley back in action, and he's nowhere near.
Yeah, but it feels like he's going to have. We're in a kind of. it's not catch-22. It's not that dramatic, but he's only going to get his touch back by playing games. Whether it's touch or confidence, I don't know. But he looks completely bereft of confidence because he had those terrible touches, and then there was a moment. Just it was like a simple. He just had to pass it up the line to Palmer. It was like it came to him from a throw-in, and he like bounced it off their defender. Then it came back to him, and he just about struggled to kind of turn around and play it back to Bannon. And I don't know, for a guy that was standing out for being so unhurried.
I know. Every time it seems like he's shitting himself. Yeah. I
remember we did sort of mark when he came. He talked about how Monk had sort of kind of buttered him up, and that was one of the reasons he'd come. He'd said he really believes in him, thinks he's a great player. Maybe he's not getting the
same love from Tony,
the buttering he needs. I don't know. He needs more butter. Anything else notes wise, or should we do some player ratings?
Funny enough, I actually made a note say Pookie doesn't look as good as he used to be, and then I made that note, and then he had that shot which would have been on target and would have been a difficult save had Wildsmith had to make it, but was deflected wide at that point.
I think he's just back from injury, by the way. I think that was his first game.
I think we also did a good job of making him look quite ordinary. I think. Yeah.
But that's the tricky thing with this game because I thought the back three by and large did fantastically well. It's just it kind of fell apart for 5 minutes towards the end of the game, and that's irredeemable. Unfortunately, we're not going to score 2, 3, 4 goals against a team like Norwich. So when we get that one, we need to really protect it like our lives depend on it. Okay, so Pookie was a bit poopy, but maybe that's good. So let's go for some ratings, and let's talk about Wildsmith first and foremost.
This is a tough one.
He was brilliant midweek. He wasn't as good today, but I felt for a lot of it, like so much of this, got to the point where we had some crazy tired moments and lost our head and conceded. He didn't have a great deal to do, and that was really good. And I think with what he did before then was quite good. Big questions over that first goal for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to slag him off too much. I don't want to start the circle of Tosh, and I don't think Tony Pulis is going to be getting started on that, which is good. I don't know. I'm really curious what happens if Westwood comes back and if he's fit.
Yes, that is interesting, isn't it?
I'm also wondering whether I don't know. Maybe Pulis might have a think about. Maybe I'll look at Dawson at some point. I don't think it's got there. I don't think this was terrible.
No.
This was nowhere near as bad as Dawson. Just having an absolute nightmare against Rotherham when we lost.
Yeah.
Away there 3-0. But it's still showing. I don't know. I think it's interesting. You say, we have been blessed in previous years. It's not been a problematic area. Now we're having a difficult time because we haven't made it a priority because there are so many priorities over the pitch to look for a new goalkeeper. But we definitely need a new goalkeeper. I'm happy with Wildsmith being number one until that happens. I'm happy with him being a competent number two. I think he's the best of the other options.
Yeah.
I really, really hope that there's some juice left to be had in Kieran Westwood, but I have zero expectation of it happening. But I don't know. I feel like maybe if he comes back and he gets up to fitness, and I feel like Pulis might look his way to bring him in. He pulled the blunder against was it Preston?
Yes, yeah.
But maybe there's some life there left in him. I don't know. I really, really don't know. I think I'm going to give him a 6 today.
Yeah, fair enough. I think undoubtedly Westwood, in terms of the talking, the organising, that side of things, like a player we talk about probably more often than we should, but Stephen Bywater style, that side of things that Bywater was so good at, I think Westwood is still leagues ahead of the other two. You don't hear them talking, you don't hear them shouting. And I do think that's a big part of what a goalkeeper needs to do. They have a different perspective on the pitch than almost anybody else, and they need to use that. They need to vocalize what they're seeing. They can spot situations that other players aren't able to because of they kind of got a privileged insight into things. So that's a miss that we have with the other younger two. The question about Westwood is what's left sort of bodily, I think, and that's a big question. He's no spring chicken. Anyway, the 6 for Wildsmith seems fair enough. Just in terms of the sort of game he had, they had 4 shots on target. The first 2 were in the first 5 minutes. The other 2 were the goals. So in terms of what Wildsmith had to do with saves, pretty much that second half, if it was a shot and it was on target, it went in, which doesn't look great. You can have wonderful efforts that are unsavable, but just on the face of it, that doesn't look very good, does it? 2 shots faced and 2 goals, which is why who scored wise, he's the lowest rated player on the pitch and the lowest Wednesday player by a distance. This is weird. Let's do the back 3 and then we'll do the wing backs, just because I don't know why. Let's go to Tom Lee's.
This was a TJ Maxx with 1x performance.
Okay, nice.
On the new TJ ranking scale.
And just for the time being, as we said, as we're making this transition to the TJ Maxx scale, we're just going to give the numerical value as well. So where would that put him?
That would be a 7.
7. Fair enough. I think that's a good score. Julian Berner.
Julian Berner. Berner was, I'm going to give him a 7.5. I thought he was pretty good today. I thought he was very full-blooded. He had some great moments. I love that flick on in the first half. Some really good defensive moments as well. Just all around. I thought he was great all around.
Me too. And I think there's also the last couple of games he's been in those moments where he's a bit further forward and he doesn't just immediately mess his trousers. He seems to, have a bit of wherewithal and a bit of thinking about him, and he tends to do something useful with the ball, which is very nice. Joost Van Aken.
Van Aken was good. Maybe just a slight blip for that moment, but maybe a 7, I'm going to say.
Fair dues. Moses Adebayo.
I thought he was quite good. I'm going to give him a 7. I thought it was a decent performance.
Yeah. I think he did well again, and in no way deserved that yellow card. That was nonsense. Adam Reach.
Really, really good today. I'm going to go for an 8 for Adam Reach. I just thought he was fantastic. He did some brilliant, there was one moment I think I skipped over in terms of my notes. A bit in defense with possession. He has the ball probably about on our left side, probably about halfway in our half. Just languidly lets 2 Norwich players, one pincering from the top and one coming directly at him, lets them come towards him, and then with one touch and a burst of speed, sends that guy for a hot dog and plays it across the pitch for a lovely, lovely pass in possession. That was fantastic. And who could forget? That was just such a beautiful... That was probably one of my favourite crosses I think I've seen as a Wednesdayite. I remember Jack Hunt under the time of Carvajal doing a very similar from deep, lovely from deep killing cross that just perfect. Windass didn't have to do anything. I mean, maybe he put it on the plate for him. Windass, all he had to do was basically just tuck in his napkin and pick up his fork to chow down on that one. Delicious.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? With delivery, people talk about bodies in the box. But if you can produce that sort of quality, you completely flip the odds. Because if you can find the body in the box, that's almost impossible to defend. We had the similar, I can't remember what game it was, where there was a late equaliser. Was it QPR?
Mm-hmm.
But it was the same thing. Like, it doesn't matter how well you're defending and how many bodies you've got there. If the ball is just precisely on the head of the guy that you want to get it to, that's a very, very difficult thing to defend against and a very easy chance to take when you're Windass. So it was tremendous, absolutely tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the midfield 3 and then Harris separately, even though that's not how it is on this picture I'm looking at. So I'm going to go Patterson next.
Patterson, I'm going to go for a 7.5 for Patterson. I thought he was great. I thought he was here, there, and everywhere. He was everywhere and nowhere, baby. Just really good.
It's Sheffield Wednesday, so he's got to be.
He is. He really is. I'm really liking. It's interesting because I don't know. Maybe I agree slightly with Tony Pulis. He's not quite a striker, but then who kind of else is? But he does great work all over the pitch.
Yeah.
Really, I like him in defence. I like him on the throws. He's got a little bit of everything in his locker, in his little toolbox for us. Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. He's like, in entertainment, they talk about like multi-hyphenates.
Yes.
He's like a multi-hyphenate player, isn't he?
Do you think
he's good at all those things.
Do you think he's the Donald Glover of Sheffield Wednesday right now?
He definitely is. Dominic Iorfa making his midfield debut.
I'm going to go for an 8 for Iorfa. I'm really disappointed we didn't get to see more from Iorfa. I loved him all over the place. Again, that just gives him, he can mop things up, he can get around, he can burst forward. It's Dominic Iorfa gets some 4x4 wheels on him and goes off-road. We've got
even better than that. He starts off-road in midfield, doesn't he? Like he's taking the car off the road from defence, and you're like, whoa, what about the road, Dominic? Whereas in midfield, it's just like, yeah, have at it. You brought your mud tyres. Let's go.
Dominic Iorfa's monster truck tyres.
Yeah.
He's just chewing over cars. Loves it.
I'm so annoyed he went off. I really hope he's not injured.
I
really hope we don't have to, because I really want to see him back in this position. Finally, I think we've been crying out for someone to do the defensive dirty work, but just have so much panache and flair, a bit of flair to his game. He can crank out with something. I'm really excited. I'm going to calm down.
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing some breathing exercises.
No, it's great. It's so nice to see an experiment like that, and you're like, yeah, I'd do that again. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
And in terms of we're always worried about him getting sold. You get more money for a midfielder than a defender, I think. So let's, it's all gravy. Wee Baz, Barry Bannon.
Bannon was all right. I think it was good. I liked more of his work. I don't remember much of him kind of getting forward.
In a weird way, though, kind of nice to have a performance where he wasn't the heartbeat of everything. Like, I know we lost the end, but like a positive performance where we could have easily won this game on another day. This was a fine margin sort of game, and actually we weren't wholly reliant on Barry Bannon dragging us through it, which is how this season has mainly been. It's been everybody else kind of watching Bannon, like the strongman event where they like pull a train with their teeth or whatever. Everyone's been cheering Bannon on to do that. They've been part of the effort, but it's all Bannon. And it's nice to have a performance where actually, no, it wasn't. He wasn't the be all and end all. Everything else was going on around him. If he can then be a positive addition to everything, then that again is another sort of positive prospect for the future.
This sounds weird because we kind of expect more juice from him going forward, but I want to give him a 7.5 because I think he did so much to keep possession and keep things moving around.
Yeah.
And defense, including some great moments, in collective one where we were under pressure and he did this beautiful kind of backwards flick out.
Oh, I loved that. That was so good. It was almost like the Reach moment with the kind of like waiting till the Norwich players had committed and then absolutely selling them down the river.
Doing them. It was great.
That was so good. Then we come to Kadeem Harris.
Kadeem Harris, I'm going to give a 7 to. I think was still a very consistent Kadeem Harris performance. Still very good. I'm just waiting for that magic end product. I really feel like, there's that kind of lie about how we talk about like teams, they're due a win.
Yes.
But I feel like Kadeem Harris is due. He's going to perfect the Harris,
He's going to be,
He's going to just beam one into the top corner. And we could all breathe a sigh of relief and be like, it was worth the wait. It feels like it's like waiting for Guns N' Roses' Chinese Democracy and it actually being very good. It was worth the wait.
It was worth the wait. Well, fingers crossed.
Worth the wait when he beams one in. Yeah.
Then Josh Windass plowing that lone furrow up top.
Windass, this was funny because I was almost kind of watching the game, thinking ahead of time and thinking, God, he's been a player who's done nothing. I barely remember anything he did on the ball. I think he still did a job. But yet there he was, and he scored a goal. He was just,
he was there, existing within that. The postage stamp was a really big postage stamp, but he could have been anywhere within that. But he was basically in the perfect position, just stood ready and waiting, and just giving it the most simple guiding header in from Reach's beautiful deep cross, curling deep cross. I think we can give him a 7.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's hard because we know going in, he knows going in to a game like today, this is a tough job to do. Just being the lone man up front, you have to work very, very hard. You're feeding off scraps. But I just, what I like about him playing up there, and I don't know that anybody else necessarily has it, there's a sharpness to his play. So I feel like as a defender playing against him, you've got to be constantly on your guard. There was a moment where Gibson, I think it was, like kind of blindly turned on the ball, and like Windass was there. And I don't know that anybody else is quite quick enough or sharp enough to have kind of been there to almost punish him for that mistake. He didn't quite make the mistake in the end. He quickly bailed out of the move he was going to do. But like that kind of charging it down and almost sort of sneaking into positions to pop up where you're not expected to be. I think Windass is as good as is better than anybody else in the squad doing it. You're going to be anonymous most of the time, and all you can ask is if he does get that chance to put it away, and he did. So I think 7's potentially a touch on the harsh side, but I'm happy to sort of go with it because by and large he was just moving around, but he wasn't doing very much on the ball. So Joey Pelopessi was the first sub that came on, 53rd minute.
This was
what might have been.
Thinking it was just so disappointing to think again that I don't know. I'm really curious. Be really curious to look back on that decision we made at the end of last season, where we made retentions and we activated a clause in Pelopessi's contract to keep him around for another year.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been embarrassing this year. I don't think he's been terrible. Still, I don't know. It's you're going to be at a huge loss when you're going to have to take off Dominic Iorfa at the 15 minute for whatever reason. Maybe he was tired. Maybe it was. I really hope it's not an injury. Maybe it was that. But to have to bring him on to replace and do all the things that you felt that Iorfa was doing is just going to be a loss before a ball is kicked.
Yeah, I think we did say when that decision was made. I mean, I was slightly more positive about it than you were. It wouldn't have been hard. But I think we both sort of said a lot of this depends on how much he plays. If Pelopessi is there and he is a drop in every now and then, third or fourth choice, that's one thing. But I'm not going to go back and look at it. But I feel like Pelopessi's played almost every game, played a part in almost every game this season. And that is quite different. That's quite different to being a guy. I think that's more than he played last season. I don't know. I mean, I might be proved wrong when look at the actual statistics, but
to look at the stats of that, Rich, just to kind of support your point. So right now, this kind of reads a bit like Lucas Shaw, like last season, scored 6 goals. Now he's on 13 or 14 now, I think it is. Last season, Pelopessi
played 17 games. This season, he's played 11 already.
Right, yeah. So there you go.
Been like 2 games he's missed out on. No, it's been 5 games.
5 games he's missed out on. It was a shame that chance landed with him. He just almost anybody else on the pitch is who you want.
The fact that he had the engine to get forward is something to be commended.
Yeah.
I think that's something to look at on the positive side. But, from my notes, I don't think I shared this. I said, could he have done better? I was like, well, I don't really expect anything better from Joey Pelopessi in that situation.
So, no.
A player, an amorphous blob of football player, could and probably should do better in that situation. Could Joey Pelopessi do better than he did in that situation? Probably not. That's probably about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
He had 2 shots because he had a wild speculative effort as well, didn't he? From distance.
He's trying to relive that goal against Millwall he pulled out of nowhere.
Yes. Yeah. He had a few of those on his highlight reel when he came to us, but we can see why they, when they happen, they're spectacular because it's just like it's a finger in the air and a hope for the best. But also, I think it was really telling of the Dutch, the quality of the Dutch league. He was a captain for Herenveen. Not nowhere near.
But I don't know. That's an interesting point, Rich. I mean, would the Dutch winds suddenly lowering the altitude of the ball so much that it goes in?
Well, being below sea level has an impact on those volleys.
Oh, there we go.
Like Denver in the American football, the by almost every kickoff it goes straight out of play because the air's so thin. It's the opposite in in Holland. You can really smash a volley and it dips beautifully because of the added gravity. The thickness of the air. Sorry, what a silly thing to start talking about. Liam Palmer was next on for Trumpy.
Palmer was fine. I didn't give a rating for Pelopessi, did I?
Oh, sorry.
6.
6.
Yeah.
I might start introducing him as Pelopessi 6.
I like it.
Did Pelopessi 6 get onto the pitch today, Luke? Yes, he did. Okay.
You've heard of Ben 10. Now it's Joey 6.
Joey 6. Joey S6. He works on many levels. Palmer, the good cross, the Patterson header, that was his cross, wasn't it, I think? The Patterson header late on, which he sort of boomed against the floor and it dramatically hit the sort of the net support, which made half the ground think it was in.
The only way is Joey S6.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just want to get that out before I move on. Palmer, yes.
Yeah. Well, there's 50 minutes gone, and you've just lost Dom. The only way is Joey Essex. Liam Palmer. Yeah. Did you give Liam Palmer a score?
Let's go with a 6.5.
6.5. A Pessi and a half. We then had the 2 shiny boys that came on right at the end to turn things around, win the game for us. Isaiah Brown and Elias Kachunga.
Brown came on, did a poo, didn't he?
He did a poo. Kachunga did nothing, but is it better to have played and pooed or to have not played at all? That's the question here. Who gets the better score from Luke?
It's going to be Kachunga. Kachunga's going to get a 6. I'm going to give a 5.5.
Anonymity is better than doing an infamous poo. Fair enough.
Just like me, I'm going to come and do some coaching, join Tony Pulis's team. I'm going to be there on the side, bellowing at Izzy Brown. You should have done nothing, Izzy. That would have been better.
If you're not feeling it, get out of the way. Just hide on the wing.
I said, I've told you this before, Izzy. The song I keep playing in the changing room is Higher by the Saturdays. It's Joey Pelopessi's anthem, and it's some days I'm doing nothing because then I know that I'm doing nothing wrong.
Oh, it's a while since we talked about the Saturdays. I'm really pleased that they're back in the pod.
Mitch Tink and the boys. Is that it is?
Yeah. Dido Rabbit and Mitch Tink. Right. So a weird week, a weird game. A strange sensation to feel oddly more positive after a loss than a draw. But hopefully, I think if we can pick the positives out of that game and take them into the next run of games, we might get one of those win things, Luke. Do you think it's a possibility?
I can only dream of it. I was really hoping today was going to be the day. It's
felt like it was going to be.
So we haven't won in 6 now.
Yeah.
Still. I mean, I'm more positive about It's funny. Wednesday played Stoke the other day, and Paul Walker commentated, and then he, after commentating, he commented on Twitter afterwards,
yes,
saying it was one of the worst games he's seen.
Yeah,
and I kind of felt like chiming in and saying, well, as me as a Wednesday fan, I've seen a lot worse things as a Wednesday fan.
Oh yeah.
So what does that say about us and the football we've been served?
I mean, it's not even my worst game against Stoke. I think it may break the top 5 worst games against Stoke, but there's competition there.
Yeah. What else would be on your list of games you slides against Stoke?
It's a sorry tale, and I don't think we need to go through all of them. But I do. The only time I've ever left a game early was a game against Stoke.
Wow.
It was a typical one of those where it was 1-1. It was one. I think they were 1-0 up, and we were chasing it at Hillsborough, and then they scored against the run of play kind of thing, and it was an absolute sickener. We weren't even doing good chasing, but that would have been quite a while ago. But yeah, it was a weird comment to make. Paul Walker he's a fine journalist, but I think I always remember on Radio Sheffield he was one of the most clearly Sheffield United supporting people that they've had on there. I think most of them do quite a good job of maintaining an air of neutrality. But Paul Walker was, well, he was called Piggy Walker for a reason, wasn't he? He was...
And Walpolka.
Yes, Walpolka as well. Several nicknames that point to his allegiances, which is not really what you want from a local journalist. You want them to keep their cards pretty close to their chest, I think. Well, fingers crossed. I'm the same. I think I am slightly more hopeful. What's happened in this run of 6 games is, I think when Monk was sacked, he probably could have looked at it and told himself the story. I don't think this was true, but he could have told himself the story. Well, if it wasn't for those 6 points, we were kind of a mid-table, performance, points on the board wise, we were in a mid-table type position. If you added 6 points to where we were at, that's not the case anymore. If you had 6 points, we're still in the relegation battle. We're out of the relegation places, but that's been the impact of this run of games. I don't want to get too over the top, but I think there were enough good things. If we can keep 11 men on the pitch, which is a big if at the moment, it's nice to have Windass back. I think he's one of our few genuine threats that we have. I'm much more positive about this the next run of 4, 5, 6 games than I have been about the previous 4, 5, 6 games. So fingers crossed it's not a foolish expectation, a foolish pride. But Sheffield Wednesday do have a habit of making you feel foolish for your hopes and expectations. So we'll see. I think that's enough, though. I think it's time to say cheerio.
Let's do that.
I wish you well, Luke, and folks at home as well. Enjoy your advent calendars, and who knows what the next window Luke opens up will bring to the world. What a treat.
Thank you, Rich. Have a good week, Rich, and have a good week, everyone at home.